Episode number 157 of the Wholesome Fertility Podcast. Welcome to the Wholesome Fertility Podcast. I'm Michelle, a fertility acupuncturist here to provide you with resources on how to create a wholesome approach to your fertility journey. So today I have Jennifer on for a fertility coaching call, and Jennifer is going to be talking about her fertility journey. And I just want to mention before we get started that I am not a medical doctor. This is not to be given as medical advice. And I also suggest for Jennifer to speak to a healthcare provider before implementing anything that we spoke about today. And I also suggest this for any of the listeners as well. So without further ado, Jennifer, would you please introduce yourself and share your story? And again, thank you for coming on with such courage to share your story.
Hi, yeah. Thank you so much for having me. And I really appreciate everything that you do. And I'm really glad that we connected. I'm not sure exactly how we connected, but because I'm really sort of obsessed with reaching out and finding all of these just podcasts and platforms that really empower women on this journey and have more of an alternative method or getting to the root of what's really going on rather than kind of just adhering to only a like Western medical philosophy or approach.
Right.
So for me, it started out, I decided, I've been with my partner for a while, and we decided to, try. He was not on the same page for a while. When we got together when we were really young, and we were both artists, musicians, and just, it's already hard enough doing that. So having a child just felt kind of unattainable when we were on the road and really hustling and, playing shows and recording music and really just living the musician's life. It just felt almost impossible to add a baby into the mix. But of course I always wanted to have kids. And so I went to him and just said, I want to have a kid. When we first were together, we both were like, we don't know. I mean, I basically was like, I knew in my heart that I did, but I was like, not now.
Yeah.
So as I started to get older, then I went to him and he was not sure anymore. And he's the type of person that really thinks for himself and really does this kind of internal process and has kind of developed this internal process. So he came to me, I'm like, well, we're not, ready right at this moment. So he came to me he's like, I'm going to think about it. And it just came to me like 7 months later and was like, I'm in.
Oh, wow.
So we had moved out of our place. We had lived with a bunch of people kind of in a band house and moved into our own place because I wasn't going to start trying until we kind of lived in our own place. And we, I was not taking care of myself at all. I was really grieving the loss of my grandma and my estranged best friend. My former best friend had died, and it was like really, kind of a tragic death. And so it, I was just I was grieving, really not taking care of myself, not doing any type of preparation in terms of like taking care of my body and my mind, my health in any way. And, I always felt I had really bad periods. I always felt that it was going to be really hard for me. And I actually got pregnant on the very first try. And
Mm-hmm.
I had a lot of fear, and I was just sort of assuming that I was going to have a miscarriage. And I had a lot of fear in terms of my career, and all of a sudden it was really happening. It was really here. And
Mm-hmm.
again, it just happened on the first try. So I ended up having, the very first time I tried, I had a full term pregnancy and birth. I have a beautiful daughter. And
Mm-hmm.
so I had zero fertility journey. And then when I decided, when I was pregnant, I kept thinking about child number two, but I kept squashing it because I've always had in my brain intellectually that it was just going to be, I was going to be one and done,
Mm-hmm.
or I was going to have one and adopt one, or, I just always had like, I can't have two because of being a musician. And so then I went and, I just again I like when I was pregnant, I kept thinking about child number two. And I'm like, why is this happening? Is this just because I'm like pregnant right now and it's a biological factor and psychological and it's wanting me to have number two? So then I just kept squashing it and saying that that wasn't possible for me, and that wasn't realistic for me, and that I would really have to let go of my dreams in order to have number two. But
Mm-hmm.
it just kept coming up, and it just kept coming up. It just kept coming up, and it wasn't serving me any longer to just keep um, squashing that inner voice
Mm-hmm.
and that feeling that I had inside. And so then I went, um, so then we tried, when my daughter, like it was like 4 months before she turned um, three. Let's see. Yeah. I think it was like she was almost three.
Mm-hmm.
And she, anyways, so I started trying, and I was ended up getting pregnant 6 months later.
Mm-hmm.
And I went to like a naturopath and an acupuncturist. Like I went right away
Mm-hmm.
to a naturopath and an acupuncturist, and was taking supplements and doing that. And then I went to a hypnotherapist as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I I and I was really in this mindset of that it was so possible for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I then got pregnant 6 months later. And then I was went in for my first appointment
Mm-hmm.
and at Kaiser. And so I go in for my first appointment, and, it was really kind of interesting because they were like, do you want to bring your daughter? And my intuition was, it kind of made sense in my schedule. And I was like, oh, I'm not going to bring her.
Mm-hmm.
And then later on, I was like, thank God that I didn't, because so I went in and they just were like, there was no heartbeat.
Oh my God, I'm
And
so sorry.
yeah, oh, thank you. And there was like, they said there's no heartbeat. And I'm like, really? And I think I always had in my mind that if I had a miscarriage, I would know.
Mm-hmm.
And so, it's technically called a missed miscarriage. And with all the literature that I was given before my first appointment, there was no talk or mention of like a missed miscarriage and coming into the appointment. And so they went to get another gynecologist to double check. And I just remember laying there in the room with the neon lights,
Oh,
right? I'm sorry, the fluorescent lights with
yeah.
the awkward gown, laying there and just feeling so, with tears just like streaming down my cheeks, and just feeling so alone and isolated. And it felt as if an eternity has passed since from the first gynecologist to the second. And so then the second one came in and confirmed, and basically just kind of laid out the options for me and sort of, sent me on my way. And I was going to, I decided to take the middle route and take the pill rather than get the DNC.
Mm-hmm.
And because
How far along were you?
I was 10 weeks.
Okay.
And anyway, so um, I ended up miscarrying naturally at home. It was really unbelievably intense.
Yeah.
And really painful, and really it was like a mix between being in labor and having the worst menstrual cramps possible. And um but I was grateful to my body for taking care of it. And so they couldn't have me come in and take the pill until a week later anyway. And so it was sort of meant to be that I was able to miscarry at home. So I went to my original appointment, and they did the ultrasound to make sure that everything was, cleared out. And they just asked me, like, is there anything you wanted to say? And I was like, actually, yeah. I'm like, I feel the way, like, you gave me these ways in which I could deal with my miscarriage, but you never really, like, there was no emotional, mental, or like any type of like self-care involved at
Yeah.
all.
Wow.
Like, I couldn't believe it was just, and so I said that, there was no mention of a miscarriage for me even to come in and say there is a possibility that, well, we won't find a heartbeat. This is your first appointment. And then again, just how it was just really cold and sterile and rigid in terms of like my care, where I went home and I'm just like, didn't want to talk to anybody, but I'm scouring the internet, right? Trying to
Yeah.
like hear people's stories and what do you do? And it's totally natural. Like almost 100% of women blame themselves for their miscarriage, even though it's illogical
Yeah.
and it's out of your control. We still do. And because miscarriage is such a taboo subject still, and if it is as common as it is, it's just, then why is it so stigmatized still?
Yeah.
And so I mentioned this to them, and I'm like, these components this is a serious loss.
Yep.
And there was no information of like how to take care of your body, how to take care of your mind, how to take care of your spirit, like
Yeah.
nothing. And so it was kind of funny because they actually offered me it was a volunteer position, but on the board of gynecology at Northern California Kaiser, to basically on the administration. So I basically would have been a volunteer, offering my insight as to how, how women can receive that type of care when they have a miscarriage. And I'll still, they were like, the door is open anytime. I didn't take them up on it because it was a really big time commitment, although I'm super passionate about women's not only like physical reproductive health, but the emotional and mental, health of women dealing with loss.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
just so, anyways, so I had my miscarriage, and then I've been, really going, I've gone really into my health. Like I took this hormonal health class. I took this course where I was in this cohort of women called the Primester Protocol. And it's basically goes into the physical, the psychological, and the physical, the psychological, and the like mental or the spiritual aspects, excuse me, of the all encompassing of everything that encompasses our fertility, right? And we tend in the Western world to really separate, like, it's just, we're like, what's the physical issue? What's the physical
Right.
diagnosis?
Totally.
So what's really, and it goes into the microbiome and into gut health. It really focuses a lot on that. I think it's heavier on that aspect, but the whole idea is it researches epigenetics and reversing our, basically like reversing our reproductive aging, essentially. And so I did this protocol with a cohort of women, and I didn't follow it perfectly, and she does encourage people to do at least the 80-20 rule. And so I was starting, I've learned so much about my body, and without having a fertility journey, and of course I knew the basics, but I've learned so much about my body and my hormone and understanding my hormones,
Mm-hmm.
understanding my health, like being really conscious of my diet, even just like EMFs and
Mm-hmm.
all these aspects that contribute, and just but ultimately how really stress
Mm-hmm.
is the predominant um, hindrance on our fertility, right? Because it's just when we have these, and it's kind of a catch-22 because it can be
It
such a
is.
stressful situation. So it's really hard to just say, oh, okay, I'm just going to snap out of it.
Totally.
Um, and so, but it's like your body is really always on your team. And
Mm-hmm.
when you have that type of stress, it's shutting down your reproductive system because you're in emergency mode.
Right.
You
Totally.
know, and so, anyways, I've learned such a great deal, and I I realize I'm so, I do a lot of journaling and meditation, and I've also gotten really, took this course about getting in touch with your spirit baby, and like I'm fascinated with that aspect of it. And I think I'm just what I am finding though, okay, so then I finally did IVF. And I
Mm-hmm.
was saying that I wasn't going to do it, and it was really it was really difficult to come to that decision with my partner because he did not want to do it. And he's very like touch and go with the number two. Like he's
Mm-hmm.
really happy with just our daughter. And so that was really, really hard too,
Mm-hmm.
because we're just not on the same page. And I'm just like, oh, I haven't come this far to come this far.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So, anyways, I finally, after we like went to a life coach that deals specifically with IVF and partners, and we really went through a lot together, and it was really difficult because he really didn't want to, and I really did. And so I found this place that was a lot less because we don't have any insurance coverage because we're self-employed.
Mm-hmm.
And so anyways, I found this place, and I traveled to Colorado to go there from California. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I wanted to get the genetic testing, because I wanted to take, away any chances of possibly having a miscarriage, because I was so
Right.
traumatized by my miscarriage.
Yeah.
And they really encouraged me to um, they really encouraged me actually to just freeze on day 3 and not do the genetic testing. But I consulted a few people, and I really just wanted to do it because I said to myself, if there's any chance again that I can, lessen the likelihood of me having a miscarriage, then I'm going to do that. And so unfortunately, they all fertilized, but none of them made it to 5-day blastocyst.
Mm-hmm.
So that was really hard.
Yeah.
And then I also had, been having this like thyroid issue. And so I had to get my thyroid stabilized, and I am going to actually do IVF again now that my thyroid is stabilized. But it's been really strongly encouraged for me to do a fresh embryo transfer.
Mm-hmm.
So I am going to do that. And even though I have a lot of fear around that because of the security of the PGS testing, which again, I've done further research on, and a lot of people have had a lot of success and normal pregnancies without the PGS testing. So,
Yes.
um, but and there was this article that I actually just read of, there's sort of controversy around it because they feel that they've gotten rid of eggs that actually were viable, that could
Right.
have been viable pregnancies.
Yeah.
So that's really interesting. So I'm like, okay, then I'm sort of trusting this process and trusting the universe a little bit more. But before I just felt I was going to go into it with the same fears, the same mentality. Like I do meditation and like, I do these hypnosis on YouTube and journal and everything. But it was like, I'm not penetrating my subconscious mind. Like I'm
Mm-hmm.
still in fear,
Yeah.
and I'm letting fear run the show. And so I actually I'm like, I'm not going to rush into, I was going to do it next month, and I found this woman, I found this hypnotherapist, and I, she's like, I ultimately for us to really get in there, I need to have like 2 months with you, for this work to really penetrate. And so I'm doing that and I feel really good about it
Mm-hmm.
because I just couldn't imagine going in for the fresh embryo transfer being in the exact same mental, spiritual place.
Yeah.
And so anyways, that's where I'm at right now. And I'm just really delving deep into this hypnotherapy and, of course, like doing things to take care of my body, but also not freaking out about it. I started to become kind of obsessed with it. Like, oh my gosh, if I eat this gluten, like if I have gluten, I'm like screwing up my chances. And
Right.
it started to become, um,
It becomes an obsession for sure.
it, it becomes an obsession. It wasn't beneficial. So yeah, that's where I'm at.
So let me ask you a question. What's happening with your thyroid?
So with my thyroid, what it is now stabilized. And I mean, I was prescribed levothyroxine. Basically my thyroid went off the charts, but then
Mm-hmm.
my TSH, yeah. So every like my T4, my T3, my TSH, everything, and my thyroid globulin were all just off the charts.
So do you
And
have did you get diagnosed with Hashimoto's?
and then I don't have Hashimoto's and I don't have Graves. And so it's
Okay.
really my endocrinologist is like, this is such an interesting case. The,
So they saw zero antibodies?
zero
Okay.
antibodies. So that's what's really interesting. So then my endocrinologist prescribed me like I have levothyroxine, and then the fertility clinic prescribed me a greater dose of it. So I
Mm-hmm.
went with what the fertility clinic prescribed, and I've been taking that just regularly. And I mean, there's always a part of me that doesn't like to rely on medication for
Mm-hmm.
something to be stabilized, but I'm taking the levothyroxine and just did blood work. And after months, it's finally in like perfect range.
That's great. So
So
was it too high or too low,
it
the
was too
TSH?
it was too high.
Okay, so it was what was it, if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah, I mean they were saying that they like okay, so it was really interesting. The T3, the T4, and the thyroglobulin were really high. Then the TSH was high. Then the TSH went too low.
Mm-hmm.
So that's when she was just like she thought it was thyroiditis.
Mm-hmm.
And then they just couldn't really diagnose it. And when I look in the past, one of my acupuncturists had prescribed me like I was taking vitamins and some herbs and from her and I was taking iodine.
Okay.
And
Yeah,
that's when I was
that can
like, yeah. And I mean, I didn't take it for a long time and I wasn't taking a lot of it, but that, when you look at thyroid diets, they will, I mean, it's all about removing iodine from like any foods that contain iodine. So I I don't know if it was. I can only say that it was partially from that.
mm,
It had to have been. So, I told her I was like, I think this is part of the reason my thyroid went berserk. Um, but again, it wasn't a huge amount. But I know that a little can cause that. So I stopped taking that once I started doing more research, and I was just kind of trusting her. And yeah, so I stopped taking that, and yeah, it's just I'm trying to follow a little bit more of a thyroid diet.
mm-hmm.
I am a vegetarian. I know it's like fertility diets are always encouraging you to eat meat. I just physically cannot. I don't know how to.
What about taking pills if you take beef liver?
Yeah, I that it.
You just
I
can't get your
mean,
mind around it.
it's really tough for me. It's
Yeah.
really, really tough for me. And so I've been really exploring like plant-based proteins and
Mm-hmm.
and tracking my protein, et cetera. So
And
um,
do you have eggs?
I do eat eggs.
Okay, okay.
Yeah,
So
I do eat
eggs at
eggs.
least you're getting protein from eggs, so that's good. Because sometimes people are vegan, they don't have anything at all.
Yeah, I do eat eggs. And then I have this, I took this hormonal health class and I started, you know, I'm ready to kind of get back into it, but just starting to eat more foods. Like they're like really intent, like plant-based proteins. So you're
Hmm.
getting your complete proteins and
Spirulina is really good too.
yeah, spirulina is amazing. Actually, I'm
Yeah,
glad you said that because I have to get more.
it's really good. It has proteins. It's like a food. It's really, really beneficial for the body.
Yeah, I'm glad that you said that. So yeah, I'm just putting it on my list for
Yeah.
myself. Um, but yeah, so I've done all of that. I mean, it's like it's crazy. I mean, in terms of I take an insane amount of supplements.
Hmm.
I'm always researching, I'm definitely tending to my health,
Hmm.
my mental health, my spiritual health, my physical health in ways that I never have before. And so I'm very grateful for this journey in that way.
Yeah.
I've changed so many habits. And it's, I'm just so much more conscious of not only like, yeah, of my body physically, but just also tending to my inner world, if you
Yeah.
will.
What supplements are you taking?
So my supplements, I'm taking, okay, I'm going to go through it in my mind. So I'm taking the thyroid medication, levothyroxine, and um, I'm taking CoQ10.
Hmm.
I'm taking alpha lipoic acid.
Hmm.
I'm taking, in the morning, I'm also taking like digestive bitters and, um, um, some, another like a digestive kind of supplement.
Why are you
And
taking those just for the
um,
gut?
yeah, for the gut health and just keeping like, for just for the gut health and having things just like moving, that's again in the Prime Minister protocol I took, the course that I took, they were just so much about the gut health.
Hmm.
That's their primary focus,
Hmm.
I think, from pulling away from that. But then I do take a prenatal, I take vitamin D, I take an iron supplement, I take, did I say CoQ10?
Yeah.
Okay. And then I take methylfolate.
Hmm.
And then I take all these vitamins that were recommended specifically because I know there are a lot of bad vitamins out there.
Hmm.
Um, and I take a vitamin E, I take a vitamin C, I take, um, where am I? Oh, I take a, omega, but it's like a vegetarian omega.
Hmm.
I take DHEA. I
Do you
take
know that you're low in DHEA?
no, I was, and it was recommended that I take it, and then
Okay,
I
got it.
got tested and I was really high in it. So I only take they were telling me to only take one a day.
Okay,
Um,
I would test it again just to make sure because you
mhm.
want it to be within range. I usually don't suggest it unless we really test it and see that it's low
Okay.
because it can
Okay.
have an adverse effect. And quick question, how is your period now? Because I know you said that your period was all over the place.
My period wasn't all over the place, just
Uh,
my thyroid. My period's really regular.
okay, because you had mentioned before your first pregnancy.
Oh, yeah, that's before I was taking care of myself. Like my
Uh-huh.
it hasn't always been regular, but not when I first got my period. Like I first got my period at 14. I never got it again
Hmm.
naturally I'm sorry, I never got it again until I was 18. And then, and I only got it because I was on the pill. I got off the pill. I stopped getting my period. I went to an acupuncturist. And then I've been regular ever since. And since, like that, I really, that's why I'm a huge advocate of acupuncture, because it really gave me a period. So I've been regular, but I would just have these horrific cramps, like
Mm-hmm.
horrific cramps. And so it was really, now that I am like really conscious of my diet and conscious of, just all the just certain habits and everything, it's changed. So my period was really intense in that way, but definitely since I've been tending to myself and
Mm-hmm.
taking care of my health, my period symptoms have like completely lessened.
Oh, that's great.
But I am regular, and since I had IVF, I've been a little off. Like I was a little late. I was a couple days late. Normally, I'm right on day 28.
Mm-hmm.
And since I had IVF, I was like, my next period was like 4 days late, and then the next period I had was 2 days early. So it's definitely gotten me off my cycle a little bit, but it's still in range.
Mm-hmm.
And then I have my period for 3 days.
Mm-hmm. And is it pretty good flow?
It is a good flow.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Do you get clots?
I don't get clots.
Okay, good. And then my other question is, did they figure out why you didn't get your period for so many years?
You know what? They took ultrasounds, I did blood work. They never could figure it out. And then there was one doctor that was like, I think it's anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
And like a Western doctor that said that. And
Mm-hmm.
so we just couldn't figure it out. And so I always kept thinking that I was like broken in some way, or that I wasn't going to ever be able to have kids. And I was, and I was also a dancer. And so often when people are like athletic and low body weight, but I really wasn't of low body weight.
Mm-hmm.
And when I went to the acupuncturist, they really identified that, it was like stress and anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
And again, um, since I went to him, it's been regular ever since. So there was never any diagnostics, except the only diagnosis they had was the one doctor saying that he thinks it's anxiety, which was kind of surprising to hear from a Western medical doctor.
Right. Um, okay. And then did you have anxiety growing up?
I did.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I did. And I had insomnia and just yeah, I like couldn't sleep at night, and then I would be exhausted during the day.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I think I did have anxiety, just but not really realizing it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Did they rule out PCOS?
They have, and I was really like, I think I have PCOS. I think I have PCOS. And
Mm-hmm.
but um because the main culprit is having irregular periods.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, they've ruled out PCOS, and I know that they're also like more hidden. Like you could still have a regular period and still have PCOS, but I've talked to like functional medicine doctors and gynecologists, and they're really just, I've had an HSG done.
Mm-hmm.
I actually, when I had an ultrasound for IVF, they were just like, you have a really beautiful womb. And I'm like, no one's ever told me that.
Uh-huh.
Um,
It's a
I
great thing to hear.
I know, right? I'm like, thank you for that compliment. But basically, yeah, it's really, um, yeah, it's just, uh, it's ultimately like it just comes down, to my age.
And how is your sleep?
My sleep is always very tumultuous.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm really always, I take calm, what that is, the
Magnesium?
magnesium. And then I take one melatonin
Mm-hmm.
at night. And I have found that it's been really, really helpful. I've had insomnia growing up. And so I just need to be better about putting, putting myself down earlier.
Mm-hmm.
But I it's I would say it's improved from what it used to be, but it definitely could be better.
I would definitely suggest early morning sun if you can. Just getting
Mm,
sunlight and making sure your eyes are like aware of the sun. Like the sun is like not you don't look directly at the sun, but your eyes perceive it because getting that light entrains your body and your rhythms. And that
hmm.
actually helps everything. It helps not only your circadian rhythm because it tells your body when daylight starts. And early morning's the best because that's when it starts. And then usually 12 hours later, you start to go and get more tired. And then creating an environment in your room, maybe a couple of hours before you go to sleep, where the lights are a little more dim and
Yeah.
if you're watching anything, if you're on a device, not the end of the world, but you could probably switch it to not have blue light or night shift or night. Uh, what is it? Night something
Yeah,
mode
yeah, exactly. Night mode. I
or glasses that block out the blue light.
yeah, it's um I'm really thinking, yeah, and I'm also just trying to get off of my devices at a certain time.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'm a little bit of a workaholic, and so I'm just always trying to get off of my devices.
Yeah, and you
And
can read a book or give yourself something like an alternative.
that's what I'm doing. So I've been
Yeah.
like reading at night, and it's hard to like get consistent with these habits, but
Mm-hmm.
I've been, I'm just doing it. And so I've been so much better about it in terms
Mm-hmm.
of, it's just, yeah, it's just about getting in these habits. But then, yeah, so I um, turn off my devices at a certain time. I like get the lights low. And I live in San Francisco, so it's really foggy here in the morning.
Yeah, I used to live in San
Um,
Francisco.
oh, you did? Oh,
Uh-huh.
cool. Where do you live now?
Miami Beach.
Oh, Miami Beach. Okay, cool. So yeah, it's like the sunlight in the morning, but at least there's like some type of light. But
You
we
could
have it.
also get a light box.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, it just entrains it so that this way your brain understands what time it is and it really like gets it confirmed
Yeah.
and it'll help the circadian rhythm little by little. It'll start to nudge it. And then even getting moonlight at night or going outside and looking at the dark sky because it's lit differently depending on the time of the month, that also entrains our cycles. So that's something that you just want to do, kind of like borrow from nature. Same thing with like getting either a grounding mat or putting your feet on the earth, which is really great for inflammation, for so many different things. These are things that I tell everybody to do, and keeping your
Yeah.
feet warm. You don't want to put it on like cold tile because it can draw up cold in the channels. So there's just a couple of things. It's kind of like something I tell everybody, but some of the things that I was thinking for you specifically, I feel like you've definitely done a lot of you're on the supplements, you're already like learning a lot about the diet and the gut. I would say sound vibration would be something that would really help you because you're a musician. I think that it would really be a good therapeutic for you. And that includes saying mantras. And my thought is like the throat mantra, the throat chakra.
Hmm.
HAM. Sound it out every day and imagine your throat balancing and harmonizing because that was where your thyroid is. And
Mm.
there's some kind of correlation that I feel with that that would really help you. And then you can also do the second chakra mantra, which is VAM, VAM, and use your singing, use your natural abilities. Is that what you did, singing?
Yeah, I'm a singer, and I did that for a little while. I did uh Kundalini
Mm-hmm.
meditation with chanting.
Yeah.
Um um but yeah, I love that focusing on the throat chakra,
Yeah.
and and then Vam is for which chakra?
The second chakra. And the reason I say
Okay.
that is because, well, you've had obviously kind of a disruption in the throat chakra. And I'm wondering, it's also expression. Do you express yourself? And the Vam is the second chakra because obviously you've dealt with a loss, and we hold a lot of emotions and blockages and trauma in our body.
Yeah,
And so
absolutely.
it's important to kind of link the two, to voice it, voice what you're feeling through your loss in the second chakra. So having that connection between the two. Usually I do the heart and the uterus, but in this case, it's really voicing and expressing because it sounds like, I mean, a lot of my work I honestly do intuitively. This is what's just coming to me and I'm just going to go with it. I
I
don't
love
really call
it.
myself an intuitive, but I am, and I'm just going to kind of flow with what's coming to me. Is
I
for
love it.
sure vibration for you is like 100%, I feel like, is your key because that's how you express yourself. And my feeling is that you've done music, and music's the way you've expressed yourself, and that's the way you've done it, not so much from other ways of directly talking but more through that creativity. I don't know
Right.
if I'm right or not. um, but that's how I feel it's got to be expressed, like fully expressed within your heart, fully felt and allowed to come out because it was a trauma that you experienced. You didn't really have a place or support at the time that somebody can tell you exactly what you need to do or give you some kind of guidance. You kind of like were floating through your trauma, and it needs to have a place to go. It needs to come out. It needs to be validated, and it needs to be loved. You know, that
Hmm.
part of yourself. And I'm just feeling vibration. That's like what I feel, you know, singing to your daughter and really seeing that energy flowing through your throat and, you know, your heart, your throat, your heart, and your lower abdomen where your womb is, and really kind of utilizing the love that you have for your daughter to awaken that heart chakra. That's what I say always for secondary, you know, when you have a child already, to utilize that cultivation of love that comes out when you're holding your child and utilizing that response from your body and really channeling it to your uterus, if that makes sense.
It this totally makes sense. And I mean, I think ultimately this is the kind of work that resonates with me.
Mm-hmm.
And where what it really comes down to. And, I did this sort of, I'm kind of a serial course taker. I love
I'm
learning.
guilty of that as well. I love it.
I'm like, my partner's like, take a break. But because I can put myself into overwhelm. I'm just
Yeah.
very thirsty to learn. And then I do a lot of, again, like I took this spirit baby course and um really getting kind of into that mode. But I did do this sort of law of attraction, subconscious reprogramming your brain.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing I thought was really interesting is when you put your hand on your heart and your hand on your uterus.
Mm-hmm.
And it, I always thought this was interesting, but she's like, think of the love that you have for something and send that love from your heart to your uterus. But she's like,
Mm-hmm.
if you have a child already, don't use them. And
Oh.
I never really understood why. And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
because she's cracked my heart so wide open
Mm-hmm.
that I never really asked why that was the case. But in like you telling me to, you know, that love that's been cracked open in my heart, why not
I
send
don't see it as
love?
a separation. That's how I
Yeah.
see it. I do not see it as a, but listen, everybody has their own
Yeah,
reasoning,
yeah.
but I don't see it as something that has boundaries.
Yeah, me neither. But anyways, I just thought that was interesting. But yeah, I
Yeah.
know everyone has their own experiences or reasons, but yeah, I can
Yeah.
really see that.
Yeah, maybe because she's seeing it as like kind of protecting, you know, one child and kind of that connection. But To me,
Right.
any kind of invocation, there's the meta meditation, which is the loving kindness. It's all about evoking that feeling of love. And that is thinking about people that you love and having that warmth and connection. And it's all like, it's all the ocean, there's no divide, if that makes sense.
Yep.
It's all one part. There's no like this one and that one and this one. I see it as the whole.
Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly. And interestingly enough, in the Primus protocol that I did, the meditation is something that we would do as well. The loving kindness meditation
Yeah.
is it's so powerful.
It is so powerful. And actually it can bring healing to the world. This is
Ab-
my view. We're all part of the
absolutely,
same thing. The world needs it now more than ever.
absolutely, absolutely. It
But
really,
yeah,
truly
and it's
does.
all hologram. It's a whole, what we have internally within our own world. It really reflects on the outer world. Everything is this kind of hologram that connects everything. And we have so much power. You have so much power. I feel that my belief is that when you feel that urge to have a child, that calling, and that calling keeps coming, there's a reason for that. It's not
Hmm.
random. I don't believe it's random.
I
I
don't
don't
either.
know that it's going to be exactly how we want it to play out. It could
Right.
manifest in a different way. Sometimes it can happen naturally, sometimes it can happen IVF, sometimes it can happen egg donors, sometimes embryo donors, sometimes adoption. I don't know how, but I do feel that it's a calling for a reason and it's not random. That's my belief.
Hmm. Yep. Totally. Totally. And then, I've also been doing the work of like being, okay, like if it doesn't happen and it's just the three of us and writing about that. And,
Mm-hmm.
um, yeah. And I think that there was part of me that I learned from somebody else. I was like, I just didn't feel good after I wrote that. And it felt that I was almost putting too much energy into it not happening. And then I heard from this other person that she was like, you always want to end with, a positive note. So I think there's always this kind of, yeah, it's like a slippery slope because you want to just stay open, but
Mm-hmm.
then you want it when you feel like when you entertain it not happening, like I spend so much energy in it not happening, but more in like a fear-based way.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, just really I think just putting my energy into it happen into it manifesting, but like what's really hard for me is letting go of the how.
That's always the case. Always the case. People think about the how, they don't think about
Mm-hmm.
the what. Now, here's the thing that I just want to point out to you because it sounds like you're already very conscious and you've really created a consciousness where you're starting to become very aware of yourself, your body, how you feel from the inside out. And my thing to you is whatever it is that you choose to do, because when you were talking about writing it down about it just being the three of you, I was going to ask you why, what would benefit you to do that. Not to say that you can't do that. It's more what was the intention behind it. Always look at the intention behind everything that you do. Is it coming from fear or is it coming from love? What's the
Yeah,
driving force?
I always ask myself that. I'm
Yeah.
like, am I choosing this from a place of fear? Or am I choosing this from a place of love?
Yes.
And that it was kind of part of my coursework. And I think the whole premise of it was to bring that fear
Mm-hmm.
completely into the light so it
Yeah.
loses its grip.
Yes. So it's like
And so,
shadow work.
yeah, it's shadow work. But I guess in a way it ended up making I felt like I was sort of stuck in that shadow, if that
Mm-hmm.
makes sense.
Yeah.
And so I think that when I learned the technique from another person, when she was saying to like, not end it with not like forced positivity, but kind of saying, okay, bringing that fear into the light, and then kind of then choosing something from there, from a place of love after you brought in the light. Because I do really understand that, I'm a big advocate of bringing the fears into the light, because if we don't bring them to the light, then they're going to continue to be in the driver's seat.
Here's what I was going to say for you is that it's great to take courses, but don't
Mm-hmm.
let that get in the way of your own intuition, your own inner voice of what feels right to you.
Absolutely.
You see what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
Yeah, so you have intuition. You don't need somebody else to confirm that. You already have that. Go with
Yep.
that. Go with what feels right to you. You already confirmed that you felt like you knew. You ask yourself the intuition or intention, what your intention is, why you start things. Like you have that. You already have it. You don't need a middle person to tell you. And I would say go into journaling, write down like the things that, which will bring you more into your own intuition and your own inner guidance and voice. You start to automatically write, automatic writing, where things will start to come to you. Ask the questions and they'll appear, and ask for the signs. And one of the things you can do too is, which is hard, is write a letter to the child that you've lost. I don't know if you've done that before already or not,
Um,
but
I didn't, I wrote about it, and then I did a new moon ceremony and like spoke to the child.
okay, so you had a communication of some
Mhm.
sort, which is, it's just
Mhm.
really important because it gives you that connect. Because I'll tell you, that child's going to be your child forever.
Totally. I
Earth
feel
plane or
that.
not, you're connected to that child forever. Like nothing is going to separate you from that child. You're still the child's mother. And I think that that's the key. And there's also another thing that I'm going to suggest. It is kind of running over time here, but I just want to suggest a couple things. There's and it's for you and also the listeners who have gone through Miscarriage Hope Desk by Allison Schaff. It's a great community. After Chloe by Melo Garcia, and also something was really interesting: pregnancy after loss support, and that is from Lindsay Henke. I just recently had her on. She had pregnancy, and then she had no, her first pregnancy was a stillbirth, and she had connected with the community for miscarriage. But then after that, she got pregnant again and had to figure out who do I talk to about this, because I don't really fit in the miscarriage category, and I don't know who can relate to this or who I can talk to. So she created a community, and it's called Pregnancy After Loss Support, when you are pregnant afterwards. And I'm hoping that's going to be obviously the case for you. So should that happen and you're feeling those anxiety feelings, or which are very common and normal when you have pregnancy after loss, that is a really great support group and community to help you. And she's a psychotherapist, so she has a lot of great tools. So that's something that I
Okay,
wanted to
awesome.
mention.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I might email you to just you just gave me, I think, three references. I might
Yeah,
email you to just get those once again.
absolutely. Absolutely. And
And
go ahead.
oh no, you go ahead.
No, I was going to say, so with you, my feeling is that this is a lot more spiritual and it's a lot more vibratory. And I, my feeling is that vibrations will really do well for you, like singing, using your voice to enhance the vibration of your body and to attune
Mhm.
you, and also to connect, for you to connect more with your own inner guidance and inner intuition. Asking the spirit baby how to guide you, what do you need to do, like give me signs, give me, things like that.
Yep, exactly. And I just to conclude, and then I so appreciate everything you're saying, and it completely resonates with me.
Oh, that's great. Thank you.
um, but I think that's where although there were components of dealing with the psychological and spiritual and emotional aspects of of fertility, I think what was happening for me is I was becoming, again, so out, like I'm like, oh my gosh, I have to do this, I have to do that, and becoming really obsessed with that, where I was a little bit disconnected from the spiritual aspect of it, because and same with IVF, because it's a scientific approach.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of puts you into that scientific logical mind.
Yeah, you almost feel like a lab rat. I mean, you do, like when you're in
Yeah,
there and then you look at labs and numbers and you feel like you're getting test scores and it's crazy.
totally. And so that's why, I mean, doing this, going to this hypnotherapist and just really, I had like a huge release yesterday. It was incredible.
Yeah.
And yeah, but connecting with my spirit baby. And I really love what you told me. I went to an energy healer and she said the same thing to me in terms of like sound healing and sound vibration.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah,
That's confirmation right there.
it's confirmation.
Yeah,
Exactly.
that's great. Amazing. I really do feel like that's kind of your flavor of medicine.
For
And
sure.
I wouldn't be surprised if you're gonna use that somehow in your future, just with something that you do for others, because that's what I tend to see a lot. People who experience something and then find healing through it and then use it. But even going to sound baths on a full moon, things like that, I think would really benefit you.
Yeah, I've never done that before.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
I'm
look into that. I mean, hopefully, I don't know what it's like in San Francisco with the COVID and everything that's going on. I don't know if it's open or not open, but sometimes they'll do with masks. They'll still have some gatherings with like certain protocols in place.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to look into the sound baths. That would have been good to do on this last full moon. I'm definitely feeling this last full moon for sure. But yeah, well, Michelle, thank you so much. I really appreciate all of your insight and taking the time to listen to my story and yeah, just give intuitive and also pragmatic advice from your heart. So
Uh,
thank you.
it was a pleasure, Jennifer. This is really, really a pleasure. It's always special, and everybody has such a unique story. And I definitely, the artist within me, feels the artist within you, because I'm also an artist. I'm a visual artist, but there's that artistic connection that you can feel within a person on that vibratory level. So
Mhm.
I definitely felt it with you, and I feel yeah, I feel like you're definitely at a very high level plane of spirituality journey, and I think ride that wave because it's going to provide so much for you on so many different levels.
Thank you so much. Well, I honor the artist in you too. And yeah, so yeah, once again, I really appreciate this.
It's my pleasure. So that concludes today's episode. You can find all of the links mentioned on the episode notes. If you're enjoying these episodes, please take a moment to share and leave a review. Reviews mean everything to podcasters, and I really enjoy hearing from my listeners. You can also find me on my website at www.thewholesomelotus.com or email me at info@thewholesomelotus.com. I love hearing from my listeners. If you're interested and want updates as well as a free ebook on my top 10 fertility boosting habits, you can visit my fertility page on www.thewholesomelotus.com. I thank you so much for listening in and hope that you have a beautiful day.